Representative Harrison, thanks for being on the program again here with us. As we do this interview here, we are now in a conservation appeal from ERCOT. You mentioned on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days, that is this Texas or California that we're in right now?
Well, it's the first thing that popped into my mind when I get these notices from ERCOT. I mean, California became famous for their rolling blackouts. And here we are in the great state of Texas, in God's country, in what is perhaps the most energy-rich patch of dirt on this planet that we call Earth. And every time it gets really hot or really cold these days, we are now in a situation where you have to wonder if the lights are going to be able to stay on, if you're going to be able to heat your home, or days like today, if you're going to be able to cool your home. And I'm just sorry. The legislature in the state of Texas has got to do more and take bolder action to let markets work and get us off of our dependence on these unreliable, heavily subsidized energy sources that are leading to this. This isn't happening because of traditional dispatchable energy sources. This is happening because of unreliable, heavily subsidized wind and solar.
Well, wind and solar, as you know, is helping to keep the lights on, providing about 30% normally of what we use every day. Is there something the legislature should have done this year or could still do if the governor calls a special session?
Yeah, two things on that. I mean, I hear this all the time. Well, wind and solar are the only thing keeping the lights on. Well, that's just not true. If you look at the numbers in aggregate, when it's on, when it's off, and what percentage of their potential output they're putting out. When we're needing them the most, they're in the single digits of their capacity. Okay. And the only reason, by the way, even if that were true, which it's not, but even if that were true, it's only because we haven't added more of the cheap, abundant, reliable, dispatchable sources like natural gas. I mean, nobody's out there saying that wind and solar is producing zero. They're producing something, but as the state of Texas is adding 1,000 people a day, and the only thing we've been bringing online is these unreliable renewables, that's why we have a systemic problem, because we're not actually adding, reorienting our energy markets to things that are reliable and are going to be there when we need them. That's the key part, when we need them, when it's really hot and when it's really cold. So yes, the legislature should have done more this last legislative session. We should have done more to more aggressively target and go after these subsidies for wind and solar. We should have done more to push us into nuclear. Nuclear is a fantastic solution. And quite frankly, it solves almost too many problems, and that's why the left doesn't like it. But also, why in the world does the state of Texas allow unelected bureaucrats to hold so much power on how we're orienting our energy market? The state legislature has outsourced the responsibility for setting a reliability standard to unelected bureaucrats at the PUC. We don't right now have a reliability standard. We should have the basic common sense approach. I filed a bill to do exactly this, by the way, which is to say, hey, if you're going to supply the grid, you've got to demonstrate reliability. And what it would also do, it would go after these energy producers, the renewables that are on the receiving end of the Joe Biden and the federal government's market distorting subsidies, make them internalize the cost, purchase dispatchable generation, but so that when they're not around for us, right, they're the ones paying the price instead of my constituents having to shoulder that price through higher rate payments when that happens.
And we've seen that proposal out there that, you know, if someone can't come on for some reason, they have to purchase that energy to make sure that that is replaced on the grid. At the end of the day, though, why haven't we seen a rush of new investment in gas-powered plants to come online here in the state?
It's a combination of a lot of things, and quite frankly, a lot of it is a federal failing. The regulations that they have to comply with are incredibly onerous. Plus, especially with wind on the production tax credits, I mean, these guys can make a profit when they're losing money. This is complete insanity, and that's the reason that there's not enough economic incentive to get the dispatchable guys to bring more to market. So we absolutely have to do that, but we got to be careful, and we don't do it by continuing to further distort the markets. That was one thing that the legislature did this session I was not a big fan of. We've got to make sure that the companies that are getting the market distorting subsidies from the tax dollars, they should be the ones paying the higher price and making sure that there's enough energy, again, when we need it. Because think about this, when we have heavily subsidized renewable energy sources, it's not that I'm anti-renewables, I'm an all of the above guy, but do it on your own, be competitive. Because when you subsidize wind and solar, taxpayers are getting hosed multiple times. They're getting abused, taxpayers, by having to pay the subsidy in the first place to bring the wind farms online. And then they're getting, again, abused because they're having to pay through tax money or increased rates the dispatchable when that doesn't come through. Okay, so there's multiple ways in which taxpayers are getting the raw end of this deal, and they're getting hosed a third way, then that when it's really hot or really cold, there's nothing working at all. This has got to stop. The Texas legislature is going to convene in the fall, and I hope we do more things like my proposal to take from the bureaucrats the power, give it back to the people's elected representatives. Let us set a reliability standard. Let's make sure that folks that are supplying the grid are going to be there when Texans need them, and let's cut off these unaffordable, unsustainable subsidies to renewables.
In ERCOT's defense, ERCOT has set a lot of new records this summer and hasn't turned the lights off once. But you still think the grid seems shaky?
Well, I think anybody who's looked at their emails or Twitter today from ERCOT know for a fact that it's shaky. And look, I'm very glad that it hasn't completely come to a stop. But we have been incredibly close. And this goes back to what I said at the beginning. We are blessed beyond blessings to live in the most energy-rich patch of dirt on planet Earth. We should be not able to just supply ourselves. We should be able to supply the country and, quite frankly, a good percentage of the world if we could get the regulatory boot off of our producers and stop and fight back against these market distorting subsidies for unreliable wind and solar.
Representative, thank you for the time.
Great to be with you, Jason.